is pushed into the sand 24 inches and is arrow straight for miles. Humans cannot do that without leaving traces, just like these crop circles are made by the same creative geniuses, and it's all on our behalf. So I think something's coming down the pike, and I'm thinking that San Diego might be a central point for it. I would love to see that giant chevron UFO hover over this El Cajon mountain where I've discovered the world's largest natural rock face. And I would say to my local San Diegans, be prepared and rejoice if you see that. Yeah, have your cameras ready too.
Well, I think we actually need to see a lot of them all over our country and all the other countries all at the same time, because I think it might shock us into realization that we're not, I don't understand people. I get so many people think we're the only ones out there in the whole universe. There's no other life. And then just recently, the Sphinx, the backside of the Sphinx, they've been running tests on all the wear marks and the deep scratches on the backside of the Sphinx, and they came to a conclusion that it was not done from the wind blowing sand against it. It was because it was underwater from an ocean. Well, that puts it before man. So I'm sometimes wondering, are we aliens on our own planet? And they're they seeded the planet, and how many times has this planet been rebooted? And they're watching over us.
That's funny you say that. Ancient aliens are just talking about panspermia, I guess, or these asteroids that contain biological life crash into the Earth, and that biological life starts right then and there. But apparently 50,000 years ago, there was a major brain evolvement of the human species from hominids to Homo sapiens. Something happened, and it looks like it was alien intervention. There's no other possible excuse for that. And it's like they have speeded up our evolution, and that's why apparently Eisenhower actually met with aliens, and they had some sort of agreement where they would allow aliens to continue to abduct humans in exchange for technological information. Now, Lieutenant Philip Corsair said, yeah, Roswell was real, and we got a lot of technology from that. Lasers, circuitry, armor, night vision. And one of the heroes from the whole Roswell thing, Gary, was Colonel William Blanchard, who, without his courage, he's the guy who told Hott to actually go ahead and send this press out and tell everybody in the world that we have an alien spaceship. And his courage cost him a little bit there. But it's funny because that's the same thing another military commander did, only this was thousands of years ago in Egypt when Tutmosis III, him and his entire troops saw alien spaceships flying around, and he had his scribe write about it. And that's how we know that UFOs are in Egypt. And then, if you see my research, you'll see that I've discovered some clear UFO objects and some objects from Egypt. So, we're on our way to contact, pal.
Yeah, and I think it's going to be a lot sooner than people even realize. Going back to Roswell, going back, because again, I started out my career in radio, actually, when I was 10 years old. My dad bought me a CB. By the time I was 12, I had amateur license, and then I went into commercial broadcasting in 1976. My dad was an electronic engineer. Had helped build, design the SST that Boeing's never built. Very intelligent person. And, he sat down one time when I was a kid and explained to me, he found it so illogical. We went from massive tubes to transistors to IC, integrated circuits, so fast, to fiber optics, so fast. For years, I mean, we were, on tubes, since the early 20s to the late 50s, and all of a sudden we just started advancing like night and day.
Yeah. And it's funny you mentioned that, Gary, because Werner von Braun, who got men to the moon in his Saturn rocket, claimed, as well as Tesla, that they had information given to them, sometimes telepathically, by aliens. And they have helped them get to the moon. Now, if you've seen my website and my postings on my Facebook page, thanks to Mark Zuckerberg, I love my free scrapbook in cyberspace. But anyway, I have found the actual transcript, speaking of home radios, that intercepted the transmission from Neil Armstrong and Buzz Aldrin that there were UFOs lined up on the opposite side of the crater, and what were they going to do about it? And Cape Canaveral was in a hissy fit, and they closed it off for 2 minutes. But in this book called Celestial Rays, I found it, and there it was. Neil Armstrong and Buzz Aldrin had a UFO encounter on the moon. And
it wasn't just
maybe one.
And it wasn't, Mike, it wasn't just one. Buzz claimed there was numerous amount of UFOs. They were huge. And at the same time he was reporting this back to the Cape, they kept telling him, go to the medical channel, get off that channel, because they knew people would be monitoring it. And, and he just came out on this pretty much in his later years because, he had nothing to lose. But, he wanted to get the word out there. We're not alone. And you really think about this, why haven't we gone back to the moon? He claims that we were told, and they told them while they were on the moon, not to come back to the moon or else.
Yeah, because we don't have the right intent. Our morals are corrupt. And that's going on all over the world. And I just posted a memorial to my 9/11 victims. It still breaks my heart because I was in the Trade Tower 1 year before it happened. And it all has to do with a flawed spiritual understanding of all the religions. Not one religion really has it exactly right. And I was born and raised a Catholic. And it was funny, when I was 12 years old, going to Catholic school, I looked down and watched an usher steal a handful of cash. And it literally shook up my world. And from 12 years old on, I started making up my own rules. And it was good timing because at 13, my dad died in a tragic dune buggy wreck. And I really wanted to know what happened to my dad because my religion was not giving me the straight answers. And, when the student is ready, the teacher will appear, and it turns out my little league baseball coach in the 70s was heavy into metaphysics. And he made me read the top writers, which are, in order, T. Lobsang Rampa, Carlos Castaneda, and Jane Roberts of the Seth material, which really opened up my eyes. And that's where I learned about aliens and UFOs were emissaries from God, and I left it at that. And decades later, I would photograph them. And it's funny, I think they posed for me because somebody else would have thrown away the print. They would not have recognized the importance of the dots in the background of that photograph.
Now, a question I have for you, Mike, what type of camera was it that you used to capture those images?
And that's a very good question and a very important one. Because in 1990, when I took the photograph, digital cameras weren't out yet.
Oh, yeah.
So I had my Canon
I will say
EOS
yes.
650. What's that?
Yes, they were. I have to say this because I got one of the very first digital cameras from Nikon Kodak back in 1989 or 88. It was a half a megapixel digital camera, SLR. And I was so happy.
2.5 megapixels.
I was so happy I could do a 4x5 print. Maybe if I really pushed it, a 5x7. I was in heaven. But you know how much they cost back then?
They were probably $600-700.
No, that camera was, ready for this, almost $40,000.
What?
Oh yeah, look it up. The first.
That's why I didn't have one, because you and I were in two different tax brackets.
Oh no. Actually, I was well known for my photography. That's why they approached me and handed me a camera to play with for a while.
Well, let me tell you, this was a blessing that it was a 35 millimeter camera, because these objects are embedded in the film. And at one point, I joined MUFON, the Mutual UFO Network, and they gave me the contact to Dr. Bruce McAbee, famous naval photo analyst. I contacted him. He said, send me the photo. He analyzed it and said, these objects are unidentifiable and opaque. Something I had already figured out myself, but I needed a professional to tell me that. And when Channel 8 at CBS News came calling and they interviewed me, they made me drive them all the way up to Inyaha Scenic Trail. Can you hear me, Gary?
Oh, yeah, you're coming in fine.
Okay, and they had me drive them all the way up to scenic spot number 7, where they photographed or filmed me actually hugging this alien head boulder. And they analyzed the objects in the negative using Chrome Digital Photo Labs, who declared that these objects are in the negative, which is untouched and undamaged in any way. Now, digital photography is so easy to fake UFO photos, but when you got them embedded in a negative, that is a whole nother story.
Well, that makes it a lot harder because, I hate to say it, especially the way most digital cameras, now they are advancing but the dust getting on the CMOS sensor or the sensor, I mean, I hate to say it, some of the people want to be on my show send me orb pictures. They send me, pictures of UFOs. When I sit there and blow it up and look at it, I realize, well, that UFO was a dust spot on their sensor. And the orb is because, well, they had their porch light on. They're taking a picture, right, out in their back off their porch, and they don't comprehend what a aperture, the light coming in the aperture can create that orb, And
right.
A lot of people don't realize that. And, I don't want to bust their bubble. So, I kind of say, that's a nice picture, but I realize it's not a orb, and that picture of such and such, well, that's not a UFO. It's a dust spot. It's clearly, after I blow it up to a certain amount and look at it, I can see it's a dust spot, not a UFO. And then
right.
A lot of people don't realize the CMOS sensor, when they sit there with these video cameras and they're, magnifying it as much as they humanly can, and they look at this UFO. Well, yeah, I hate to say it, it's the CMOS sensor breaking down.
It's funny you say that because speaking of orbs, I've taken a lot of photographs of orbs, and some of them are dust on the lens. But as Teresa Caputo, the famous Long Island medium, has said numerous times, some of these orbs are actual spirits, and this is how they show up in digital photography. Now, I had one of my relatives come from Oregon, and they had just lost their son. And oh my gosh, Gary, almost every photo I took, here is this strange orb hovering over and around him. And as I showed them the digital pictures, they were in love with the fact that their son is very much alive. And then I told them what happened to me. In 2015, I went and saw the world's greatest psychic medium, John Edward, who started it all with his program Crossing Over in the 80s. And he said, it was my third meeting with John Edwards in front of 500 people. He channeled my dad, and he was spot on. Oh, my gosh. My dad knew that he was the inspiration behind this book that I'm writing, which is now published. It's called Aliens from Above, The Last in Line. And my dad, of course, is in it, and it's dedicated to him. And I'm pretty sure that he has been helping me on the other side along the way, because somebody has saved me clearly from the hand of death. I've had so many close calls. I mean, I had some guy run a red light and almost wiped me out just 2 months ago. That was the third time. I mean, people, when it's a red light, you're supposed to stop. So anyway, I believe not only that some orbs are UFOs, but that they want us to know that we don't die. We're as dead now as we're ever going to be. And that eventually, after we have our contact event, we will actually be escaping death. This is actually in Revelations, and death shall be no more. The code, the secret for this had been given to us. If you learn your spiritual lessons, And you're able to actually go into a meditative trance and